So welcome back, everybody. All are welcome. So last time we saw the very first electrical generator, and this day we will be looking at a modern electrical generator. So very first we will be going through some theory part, then we will be looking at a generator. So the generator is made out of Faraday's principle of electromagnetic induction. So Faraday found out this principle, and the generator is made of this principle. So the Faraday's principle is this thing, that the relative motion between an electrical conductor and a magnetic field will induce an EMF across the electrical conductor. So this is the principle of electromagnetic induction. Rishikesh, are you there?
Yes, sir.
So please read out the principle for me.
The relative motion between electric conductor and a magnetic field will induce an EMF across the electric conductor.
Okay. In the last class we saw it. So actually we saw it.
Yes.
So last class we saw that in order to make a generator, we need basically we need electrical conductors and a magnet or magnetic field. So in this principle, some words may be a little bit new to you. Are you familiar with the word field? Do you know a definition for field?
No, sir.
No. So that word is very much new to you. Then EMF. What about EMF? Electromotive force. EMF. Rishikesh?
No idea, sir.
No idea. So we will be looking at these two words very first. Other things are very much familiar to you. No new words are there, isn't it? The relative motion between electrical conductor and a magnetic field will induce a EMF across the electrical conductor. So the key words here is field and EMF. So let us look at these two words. Very first, let us define what field is. What is meant by a field? A field in scientific arena or in physics. What a field means in physics. You know its literary meaning. A field. You know it, huh? Jinsha? What about you? You know the meaning of a field. Are you there? Rishikesh?
Yes.
You know what is field? Football field, yeah? Hockey field.
Open place.
Yeah. A little bit open place. That is field. That is the literary meaning of field. So let us see what is the meaning of field in science. In science, actually, its definition is written here. any physical quantity which could be defined or assigned a value at every point in space is a field. Any physical quantity which can be assigned a value at every point in the space or in the universe is called a field. Uncle has given you some examples. There are electrical fields are there, magnetic field is there, then temperature field is there. So Uncle will explain about field a little bit. You just think that the room in which you are sitting is our universe. Okay? That much is our universe. Okay, Rishikesh? Okay?
Okay, sir.
Okay. Then you think about temperature inside that room. You can give to each point in that room a value. You can assign a value, temperature value. Isn't it? You can assign. Huh?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So we would say that in the room there is a temperature field. There is a temperature field in the room. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So at some places the temperature may be 0. At some places it may be 25 degree centigrade. At some places it may be 40 degree centigrade, like that. At every point we can assign a value to a temperature value. So we can say that the room is filled with temperature, or there is a temperature field in the room. Okay. Like such, there are electrical fields as well, magnetic field. So in order to understand electrical field, Uncle will give you an example that, okay, again, let us assume that the room is our universe, and that room is, nothing is there inside that room. Nothing is there. And let us say one charged particle enters the room, enters there very fast. Then think that another point is another charge. Again, after, let us say, half an hour, another charge is entering that room. Instantaneously, the earlier charge, actually both the charge will understand that there are another charge is there, another charge. How is it possible?
Because of electric field.
Okay. So if we put a charge in a room, its influence is there filled all over that room, all over that. So that is, so we will say that the room, actually the room is our universe. Room is filled with electrical field. So when another charge enters the room, it will make some arrangements, and they will relocate according to the type of charge entering the room. They will relocate, and they will take some stable positions. So we will say that if a charge is there, around that charge, some field is there, an influence of that charge is there away from that charge, that influence is what we call as field or electrical field. As far as a magnet also is concerned, there is field. And there are field lines and all those things are there. Uncle has given a picture here. Actually, in a magnet, we will say that the field lines are originating from North Pole and they are ending up at South Pole. So if we put a magnet somewhere in the room, the space will be filled with magnetic field. So by definition, the definition of field is any physical quantity which could be defined or assigned a value at every point in space is called a field. Okay, Rishikesh?
Okay, sir.
Okay. So there are temperature field, electrical field, magnetic field, all such fields are there. You can define any type of fields, And actually, as far as a field is concerned, when we study about field, there are two types of fields are there. One is what we call as scalar field and the other is a vector field. For some fields, we have to we can define only magnitude. Example is temperature field. For this field, at each point we can define some magnitudes. But for some other fields, we have to define magnitude as well a direction for the field. That field will have a direction. For example, we just saw such a field, magnetic field. It has got a direction. Its effect actually originates from the North Pole and it ends at South Pole. Okay, it has got a direction. Such a field has got a magnitude as well as a direction. Such fields are called vector fields. So in this temperature field is a scalar field. Electric and magnetic fields are actually vector fields. Okay. So we have defined field and we right now saw scalar field and vector field. Actually, this is one type of representation of a field. We can represent field like this. This is actually a ray. So at each point, depending upon the strength of that field, we will draw a ray. If the ray has got its length will depend upon this strength at this point. You can see that this line is a little bit lengthier than this field line. So we if we represent field in this way, we will get an idea about the intensity of the field at that area. So this is one way of representing a field. This is another way of representing a field. Here, actually, we have connected all the rays and we made some lines. So this will give us some more physical feeling about the field. But from the earlier picture, one quality will be missing. That we doesn't have an idea about the intensity of field at a point. But overall, this picture will give you a better feeling for that field. Again, this is another field, another field. Let us say a river flowing, let us say flow of water. We can say that a field of flow of water, like that. We can say like that. Another way of representing it. This is another field. And now you have to keep in mind that the world or the universe is filled with electromagnetic field. You have to keep this sentence in your mind always. The world is filled with electromagnetic field. So Rishikesh, spell it out for me.
The world is filled with electromagnetic field.
Oh, the world is filled with electromagnetic field. The universe is filled with electromagnetic field. And at many places, the electromagnetic field is at its ground state, meaning that its value may be at 0. We can't say that its value is 0, but we will say that at many places, at vacuum, many places, the electromagnetic field is at its ground state. Okay, that is about the field. Then we will move over to EMF. We will look at what is EMF or electromotive force. So we can say that in an electric field, points where the field intensity is high is having a higher EMF than the points where the field intensity is low. And the unit of higher EMF can be termed as electric potential. And the unit of electrical potential is voltage. So right now, you know that fields are generated by charges. Am I right? An electric field is generated by electric charges. Am I right, Rishikesh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So if there is a field, electric field, charges are there. And if the field intensity at a point is at a higher level, means that at that point of region, you have got more charges. Charges are accumulated at that point. You have got more charges at that point. So charge, it depends on the charge distribution. So at one point, the electrical field intensity is at higher level, means that electrical charges are accumulated there. And if you say that at another point, intensity is very much low, means we can see only few charges are there. So it all depends upon the electrical potential, depends upon the charge distribution. So the at one point, if you say that at one point the electrical potential is high, means that there are more and more charges are there. Charges are accumulated at that point. So that point, we say that its voltage is at a higher level. So if we say one point has got a higher voltage, means that basically means that there are more
EMF.
electrical charges. Okay, EMF is at a higher level, means that that point has got more electrical charges there. Let us say there are so many free electrons are there in another. In a practical way, we can say that there are many electrons are there. If we say that at a point the voltage is high, means more electrons are there. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Actually, the electrical potential of a point is defined in some other way. It is actually the electrical potential of a point is defined in this way. It is actually the work done in moving a unit charge from that point to infinity. That point to infinity. Work done in moving a unit charge from that point to infinity is called the electrical potential of a point. Uncle will explain it a little bit. So the concept of infinity is come here as a trick. So you have got 2 points here, point 1 and point 2. So we have to define the electrical potential of these 2 points. These 2 points. One point may be at a higher electrical potential, meaning that there are more electrical charges or will be there at its vicinity. Other point may be at a lower level, meaning that the charge intensity at this point is very low. So basically, we are interested in the potential difference between these 2 points. Potential difference between these 2 points. And as always, the current, there will be a current from higher potential to lower potential. This is somewhat same with water flow. Water will flow from a higher potential point to a lower potential point. Am I correct? Rishikesh?
Yes, sir.
No, you are okay with it, huh? Okay with this point. So in electricity, we will define the potential of these such points, bringing out a common point relative to all these points. So if there are so many points are there here in, let us say, in this world, or in let us say in our earth and all those things, and if you are asked to say a common point to all these points will be located at
Infinity.
At infinity. They will be located at infinity, because as far as point 1 0.2, if there is a 0.3, 4, 5 or are there, a point at infinity will be common to all these points. So in order to find the potential difference between these 2 points, we have made a trick actually. So we will define it in this way that potential at this point is the work done in taking a unit positive charge from this point to this point. So that is the potential of 0.2, and again 0.1. It is again the work done in taking a unit charge from 0.1 to infinity. So infinity is the common point here. But basically, we are actually interested in the potential difference between 0.1 and 0.2. So if we know that the potential of 2 and potential of 1, when you study vector algebra, you will say, did you have any idea on vector algebra? Shikesh is studying in 9th standard. Am I okay?
No, 8th standard, sir.
You people doesn't have an idea on vector.
Vector, I have studied in physics.
Okay. So
Vector quantities.
You know the addition, vector algebra, vector addition and all those things, isn't it?
No.
Okay, you studied about just vectors.
Vector.
Okay. So by defining the potential difference between 0.1 and 2 is actually it is the work done in taking a unit charge from 0.1 to 0.2. So we can find it in another way. We know we have defined the potential of 0.2 here by defining a point at infinity. Again, we have an idea on the potential of 0.1 here by defining a point at infinity, which is a common point. So the potential difference between 0.1 and 0.2 can be calculated by actually adding up the work done in taking unit charge from 0.1 to infinity, then negating the other value, minus this vector. Actually, we have defined 2 vectors to infinity, so we will add it up this way, and we will get the potential difference between 0.1 and 2. So this is a little bit complex for you, I think. So let us move over. So actually the potential difference between 2 points is defined as the difference between works to be done in carrying unit charges from these points to infinity. And the unit of potential difference is voltage. Potential difference is voltage. Potential at a point is defined in a word called voltage. So if you have got a higher potential point, means there are more charges are there. So we will say that it is at a higher voltage. That is the point you have to keep in mind. A higher voltage point means that the charge intensity at that point is at a higher level. So that is written here. Actually, an electric field intensity at a point is higher means that electrical charges are accumulated at that point, and the higher the accumulation, the higher the intensity, the higher the electrical potential of that point. Meaning that a point has got higher electrical potential means charges are accumulated there. And these charges will flow from higher potential points to lower potential points, releasing energy. If a charge from a higher potential point reaches a point at a lower potential level, that means that it has got released some energy. And if we could show them a path for this travel, we can utilize this energy. That is the basic principle of utilizing the energy, utilizing electrical energy or whatever energy it may be. That is our principle. Actually, in electrical terms, a charge at higher potential is given a path through well-designed equipments. Let us say a bulb in your room, or a motor, or a fan. So we are actually directing that charge through these equipments so that the energy released will do work for us. Did you get the idea?
Yes, sir.
That is what we are doing. In any case, wherever we are utilizing the energy, we are doing in this way. So if an electrical generator is
but how a voltage of a equipment is calculated? We can see the voltage in its packet.
Okay. So if an equipment, uncle will tell that at end. Are you leaving at 7 o'clock?
No. My class has some problems.
Okay. So uncle will tell you about that thing at the end. Okay. You got this idea. Actually, the charges will flow from higher potential. Let us say here you can when you see the word charge, you can replace it with electron. Let us say electron. Okay, electron is a charged particle. So when you see charges here, you can automatically you can bring in electron into your mind. Uncle wrote charge to make it general. So charges will flow from higher potential point to a lower potential point, releasing energy. So we will show these charges a path. So these charges will flow through these equipments, and when they release energy, these equipments will do work. If it is directed through a bulb, the bulb will glow and it will give you light energy. So uncle was telling something about electrical field and electrical potential and all those things. So right now, let us move over to magnetism. So magnetism is basically, we will tell that it is a quantum mechanical phenomenon. And strictly saying, we don't have a perfect theory for magnetism. A lot more has to be explored in magnetism. As far as magnetism is concerned, we are not having that much knowledge about magnetism, because it is actually a quantum mechanical phenomenon. Quantum mechanical phenomenon means that it's basically generated at subatomic particle level, magnetism. But you can say that it is related with moving charges or current. It is related with current, and where there is current, there is magnetism. Where there is current, there is magnetism. If a current flows through a conductor, it will show a magnetic property as well. Okay, so it's related with it's related with moving charges. Then you can see some solid blocks of magnets, solid block of magnet showing magnetism. So how these solid blocks of magnetism, solid blocks can show magnetism? Do you have any idea, Rishikesh?
Because of current.
Flow of current. Flow of current. So, okay, of course, that is a good answer. Some current is there. Some current is there. That is why it is showing magnetism. And could you explain a little more on it?
No, I don't know much more than that.
Actually, all materials show magnetism. All the materials show magnetism. Because we started our journey with a hypothesis that everything is made of atoms. And we looked at atoms and we saw that atom is made of a nucleus and surrounding electrons. Electrons are charged particles, and they are always spinning around this nucleus, meaning that electronic current is there in every object, in everything. There is a current is there. So all materials show magnetism. Where there is current, there is magnetism. Charges are moving here and there, or like it's around the nucleus. Electrons are rotate. So that is why. So it is because of this electron current that materials show magnetism. And the materials with incomplete electronic shells will show magnetism at with a higher magnitude. So if you see a block of material and it's showing magnetism, you can very well say that it has got incomplete electronic shells at its subatomic level. So actually around the nucleus, electrons are filled in a specific law, so that at some particular electronic shells, there will be not enough electrons. And materials with such incomplete electronic shells will show magnetism. So actually we see electrons as small little magnets, and in each shell, electrons, if there are 2 electrons, they will rotate in opposite way, let us say opposite way, annulling its magnetism actually. In other way, we can say that it has got a quantum number of magnetism. One electron will have a plus quantum number, other electrons will have negative quantum number, and if there are 2 electrons, they will combine together, making the magnetism nil. So if there is an incomplete electronic shell for an atom, it will show magnetism. Did you get an idea, Rishikesh?
Yes.
So now we have to move over to practical way of making a magnet, an electromagnet, let us say. How can we make an electromagnet? We can make such an electromagnet. And if you take a iron block and wound it with electrical conductor, and we allow current to flow through it, it will turn magnetism as a magnet. It is an electromagnetic arrangement, electromagnet. And modern day electrical generators, magnetism is produced in this way. Exactly in this way, fashion, we will generate magnetism in modern day generators. So this is the picture. An iron bar wound with an electrical conductor. So we will say, we will call it a coiled shape, and we will give current to it. So this iron bar inside will show magnetism, or it will turn as a it will work as a magnet. So I have a assignment for you. You can do it at home. You take a small nail or battery, make an arrangement like this. You can see that the nail will show magnetism, or the nail will turn as a magnet. Anyone did this experiment? Rishikesh?
I have tried, but it was not doing well.
Doing well. In that case, you may add up batteries here. Rather than one battery, you may give another battery as well, so that the magnetic effect will be a little bit more predominant. Okay. You may try it at home, this experiment. Again, it's a magnet, and magnetic lines here is shown. Magnetic lines are shown here. Again, this is a magnet, a very huge magnet. So till now we've Uncle tried to define voltage, potential of a point. That simply means that that point is accumulated with charge. A higher potential means more and more charges are there. Lower potential means the charge intensity is low, so that the electrical field intensity around will be low. like that. Then uncle tried to give an idea about magnetism. A practical way of generating a electromagnet. Then we will move back to Faraday's principle. Faraday's principle says that the relative motion between an electrical conductor and a magnet will cause an EMF to generate across the electrical conductor. So this motion somehow cause the charges to accumulate at one point and then the other end. Okay? Okay, Rishikesh?
No, sir, I didn't got that.
Okay, I will explain as well. Faraday's principle says that if you make a relative motion between a magnet or a magnetic field and an electrical conductor, okay? So uncle will say that you are keeping the magnet stationary and making a movement of your conductor to the vicinity of your magnet. Okay? Are you okay?
Okay, sir.
If you do like this, something special will happen inside the electrical conductor. Okay?
Okay, sir.
The free charges inside that conductor, let us say, conductor. An electrical conductor will have more and more free charges. More and more electrons will be there. Free electrons will be there. Okay?
Okay, sir.
So if we make a motion near to a magnet with this electrical conductor, one special thing will happen, that these electrons will flow from one end to the other end. Okay?
Okay, sir.
So that at one end there will be more and more electrons. Okay?
Yes, sir.
And at the other end there will be a scarcity of electrons. There will be electrons won't be distributed equally in that conductor. Initially it was like that, but when we move that conductor near to a magnet, electrons will be flow and they will concentrate at one point than the other point. Okay?
Okay, sir.
So the electrical potential of one point is at a higher level and the other end is at a lower level. Okay?
Okay, sir.
Since more charges are at one end and very few, let us say very few or no electrical charges are at one end. Okay?
Okay, sir.
So we will say that a potential difference is generated across the conductor. Okay?
Okay.
Yes. Okay. That is actually Faraday's principle. Okay?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. So uncle will ask you or uncle will explain one thing, that actually you have a magnet and a conductor. Okay? A magnet is there and another conductor is there. Okay?
Okay, sir.
How can we generate a relative motion between these two? Uncle will tell that there are three ways are there in order to generate relative motion between magnet and this conductor. What all are they? Uncle will tell you. Actually, one way is keep the magnet stationary and move the conductor. Okay.
Okay. Okay,
Other
sir.
thing is exactly opposite. You can keep the conductor stationary and you can move the magnet. Move the magnet. Or there is another way in between. So if we move magnet and conductor at different speeds, again there will be a relative motion. Okay. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Oh, there are three ways. So the third way, you skip away as far as our generator is concerned. And in the modern day generator, we will keep the conductor stationary. And we will rotate the magnet. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So in a modern generator, we actually keep the electrical conductors stationary in an outer solid slotted cylinder called stator. So we will keep the conductors in stator, meaning that a stationary cylinder. And we will put magnets inside this cylinder and make it rotate. That is actually a modern day electrical generator. So this is the stator. This is stator. You can see slots here. Okay. We will put electrical conductors in these slots. Okay. This is the stator. So Rishikesh, say yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is stator. Okay. There are this cylindrical shape thing. We have got slots here. We will put conductors here. So this is a better thing. So electrical conductors are there. It is coming here and making some connections and all those things here. So such an arrangement is called actually a winding. So conductors are arranged in a fashion called winding. Okay. So this is stator, and we will put stator. This is the rotor. This is actually rotor or electromagnet arrangement. So in order to magnetize this thing, we will give actually direct current supply through slip rings, because this whole thing will be rotating. So we will make some arrangements to give electrical current to this thing. So when we give electrical supply to this unit, the rotor, this rotating portion will turn magnet. And if we make this magnet rotating, electrical potential will be generated across the stator conductors. Okay. Okay, Rishikesh.
Okay, sir.
Okay, this is actually the picture of or the theory of a modern day generator.
But is this used in motors also?
Okay.
I think I have seen.
Okay. Then uncle will say one thing. So actually, in generator, what we are doing, we are keeping stator conductors and we are forcefully rotating the rotor so that potential will be generated across the electrical conductor. And if we complete a circuit from both the ends of the conductor, a current will be flowing. That is the theory of electrical generator. And motor will do exactly the opposite. Motor will do exactly the opposite. Motor, what the motor will do?
So the magnet will be, conductor will be inside, and it will.
No, it is not like that. Not like that. Actually, the construction is the same. Construction is somewhat the same. So we are actually, we will force a current through the conductor right now. A current through the conductor right now. So the rotor has to rotate. Am I correct?
Okay, sir. So it became, rotor became conductor.
It is not like that. Not like that. Actually, in a generator, what we are doing, we are rotating the rotor forcefully. We have to rotate the rotor forcefully so that a current will be flowing through the conductor. Let us say a current will be flowing through the conductor. In that case, if we forcefully rotate the rotor, okay. Now think about its opposite. We are forcing a current through the conductor. We are forcing a current through the conductor. So the rotor has to rotate, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
The rotor has to rotate. That is actually motoring. Actually,
yes.
Motoring and generator and motor are motoring, and they are actually at two ends. They are situated at two ends. Both are actually connected. If a motor has to work, a generator has to supply current through its conductors. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So generator will be at one end, and its reverse and a motor will be. Okay. You think about this. Think about this: a generator and a motor. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So actually, in a generator, we have to forcefully rotate this rotor. Forcefully rotate this rotor. So what we will do is this rotor shaft, we will be making some arrangements to rotate this rotor. So uncle will be concentrating on a idle power station. Idle power stations meaning that the rotor will be rotated through water power. Such a station is called idle station. Okay. We can make it rotating using so many. We can make it rotating by so many ways. One such a system is a idle system. In such a system, what we do is to the rotor shaft, we will attach a turbine, a water turbine. A turbine will be attached to this end. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Like such turbine will be connected to the rotor shaft, and we will inject water to this turbine. Such a turbine is called a Pelton turbine, which has got some bucket-like arrangements. To these buckets, we will be forcing water so that it will
Start rotating.
It will rotate. So the rotor or the magnet of the alternator or our generator will rotate, so that a potential difference will be generated in the terminals of let us say our generator. So our generator will generate a potential difference. Okay.
Okay.
So again, look at this water injector. Inside a green portion is there. Okay, that is the control mechanism. This mechanism will control the water flow. If we push this nozzle to the right end, we will restrict the water so that then our generator will be generating lower power. And if we need higher power, we will push back this needed so that more and more water will be hitting the buckets. So generator will generate more power. So this is the Pelton wheel arrangement. Okay, here a big alternator is here. Actually, to this Pelton wheel, we are pumping from 6. There are 6 water jets are arranged here. Okay, water will be coming this way, and it will the first jet, second jet, third jet, like such arrangement. Actually, in our Idukki power station, this is exactly the arrangement. So to the turbine is Pelton turbine, and we have got 6 jets there. There is another type of turbine called Francis turbine. Francis turbine is the Francis turbine. So such a turbine also can be used to run our rotor. So now we will visit a actual powerhouse. This is actually owned by KSEB. KSEB's one station is this one, Neriyamangalam powerhouse. So our powerhouse and generators will be located here. So you can see a river flowing through this. So this is actually a mountain area, and this river is generated from the heights. So what we do is at the height we will build a dam, and we will storage water there at a height. Okay, at a height we will build a dam and storage water there. So water is at a higher potential. So this is the dam. So this is the dam. Okay, there are scales are there and all those things, and one intake arrangement is there. One intake arrangement from down here. One tunnel is there. A tunnel is there. Through the tunnel, water will be going to the powerhouse at down. So this picture was taken during 2 years back when there was a deluge. In that case, we actually opened up. These are sluice valves. When the dam, water to the dam is getting to rather than its final reservoir level, we will open up these sluice valves, and we will flow out the extra water. So okay, this is the dam, and this is the intake structure, and there is a shutter. Shutter is here, so that right now the tunnel is open. So by lowering this shutter, we can close the tunnel so that water to the powerhouse will be stopped. Okay, again, this is the intake structure and the shutter, tunnel shutter, intake shutter. So some people are here. So you can have an idea on the size of this shutter. Okay, okay, Kannan, are you there? Kannan?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay, okay. This is actually this is a very small dam, and this is the intake shutter. So the tunnel is right now open.
Which dam it is?
This is actually Kallarkutti Dam.
Okay, okay.
Kallarkutti Dam in Idukki. So it is actually giving water to the Neriyamangalam powerhouse.
Okay.
So from the tunnel, one very huge pipeline will start. That is what we call as penstock. So again, one guy is standing here. So that you can have the idea of the diameter of this penstock. Okay, we can very well walk through this thing. No problem. We can walk through these pipes. Okay. So such pipes will be reaching to each of the generators. Okay, from high up in the dam to the generating station at a lower level. Okay, here we have got 4 penstocks are there, and actually Neriyamangalam powerhouse has got 4 machines. So these are the machines of Neriyamangalam powerhouse. So basically this is the stator portion. Stator. Again, some people are there, so you can have an idea of the size of this machine. And when we say it is generating 17.5 megawatt of power. It's a small machine. Actually, it's very small machine, 17.5 megawatts. And nowadays, a single machine can produce more than 1,000 megawatts. More than the generators rated at more than 1,000 megawatts are there. This is actually 17.5 megawatt rated machine. This is the control room where from we will control the machine. We will switch on, switch off, and we will load the machine, meaning that we will each machine can deliver 0 to 17.5 megawatt. So depending upon the demand, we will arrange the load on these machines. So all those things will be done from the control room. And here some protection systems also will be there. Control and protection systems are stationed at the control room. Then this actually inside our powerhouse. So there will be many lines will be there. Oil systems will be there. Here yellow lines means depressurized oil, and red means pressurized oil. Other lines are blue lines are water lines. So all these things are needed for the operation control purposes of our generator. So this is actually called as the coupling chamber. This is where we couple our rotor with the turbine. Here we have got the turbine, and we will couple with the rotor here. So this is actually a vertical machine, vertically positioned machine. And this at this station, we are using a Francis turbine, and these are called wicket gates. Actually, these gates, this mechanism will open and close the small doors through which water is entering the turbine, so that the load on the node or the power generated by the machine could be controlled. And after, so water will be coming from, okay, you can see here, coming from the dam at the height, coming to this unit. Our generators are stationed here, and in order to make the rotor rotating, a turbine is there, water turbine. So water will be coming through penstocks and making the turbine rotating, and it will get out of our plant through tail race, and will join with river. Actually, this is the river Periyar. This river is Periyar River. Our actually uncle worked there for 3 years. Okay. So the power generated at the generator will come to an equipment called transformer, which will be stationed near to the powerhouse. And from this transformer, through lines, transmission lines, this called transmission lines, power will be coming to your home and will be doing works for you, and it will return actually to our powerhouse later. So our class is completed. So my intention was to give an idea of Faraday's principle, some idea on voltage, what is voltage, then magnetism, the construction of a modern day alternator, its working, and all those things. There are many more to this subject. There are many more. This is the basic idea. There are other things to be, other layers are there. It's control, protection, and all such things are there. So with this, uncle is stopping this day's class. So do anybody need clarifications?
Sir.
Okay, Rishikesh. Oh, your question. You had asked me one question. So uncle will tell you like this: voltage rating. Your question was actually about the voltage rating of an equipment. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So actually, each electrical equipment will have four voltage levels as its rating. You just hear it and you can skip it. One is its nominal voltage. Let us say if you buy a bulb from your shop, it will be written as 240 volt. bulb. Okay. So that is its nominal voltage, meaning that it is supposed to work at 230 voltage level, or it can withstand that much voltage, only that much voltage. Otherwise, if you put a higher voltage level to that equipment, what will happen? Higher voltage level means you are trying to inject more and more and more charges to that, meaning that a higher level of current will flow through that thing. So each equipment has got a thermal capacity. So in the bulb, there is a filament. Let us say in the old bulb, there is a filament is there. That is the most important unit there. So it will have a thermal capacity, meaning that if a higher level of current is driven through that thing, its temperature will be elevated, and it will break down. It will break. That is the actually breakdown happening to your equipments. It is because of it is thermal breakdown. Most of your electrical equipments are damaged because of thermal breakdown. So so that is constructed in that way. It can withstand a typical level of voltage. So that is okay for it. If you try to apply a higher level of voltage to that thing, meaning that if you are trying to push a higher level of current to that instrument won't withstand because of its make. It won't withstand that much heat. It will melt away. It will damage. It will be damaged. So each electrical equipment is rated. So we have a standard, meaning that our household equipments are to work at 240 voltage, because KSCB is supplying to your end either 240 voltage or 415 voltage. 415 voltage can be made with our supply, KSCB supply, or else domestic supply, 415 volt or 230 volt. So electrical equipments has to be capable of bearing this much voltage. So equipment manufacturers will make equipments conforming to this supply. So in our place, the standard of voltage is 230. Let us say its single phase voltage is 230. So all the single phase equipment will be made to withstand this voltage, 230 voltage. Are you happy with this answer, Rishikesh?
Yes, sir.